Hi, everyone. And again, we are going to have a little conversation. I'm Tracy Jarvis, the director of PESA UK, and I'm joined by Dr. Eboni Webb, my partner in crime and co host for our up and coming Women's Conference, which is taking place tomorrow
Mhm.
and on Friday. This massive, massive trauma summit where people are joining us from all over the world. So, Ebony, I don't know about you. I'm looking forward to so many things. Tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about, who are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to as we come together tomorrow for this Women's Trauma Summit?
Yeah, okay, so there's so much that I'm looking forward to. One piece of it is, of course, I don't know if this is something to be super excited about, but thinking about the reality of the need for this summit and, just as relevant as it was before, but I love to be able to be before a platform of the leading speakers and that they are women speaking into what women need for healing, right? This industry comes from a history founded on men speaking into the problem with women and how to treat those problems. And so I love the idea that we can have these women coming in as experts speaking about not the problem, but the solution to healing as women. And personally, my bias, I'm going to just name it right now, is to be able to interact with Dr. Pat Ogden, who developed sensory motor psychotherapy that I got certified in. And I always feel like I'm just so close to getting to meet with her and everything and thank her because it's really changed the lives of the clients that I serve.
So, yes, I think what you're speaking to here is how this women's conference, and especially people like Dr. Pat Ogden,
Hmm.
Dr. Kate Shard, Kathleen Shard, and many others,
Hmm.
we're really going to be speaking about trauma
Yes.
and solutions, how we heal women's trauma in
Hmm.
this day and age. Um, and I'm curious, Ebony, I know you're an expert in DBT too.
Hmm.
You will also be on the
Yes.
conference.
Hmm.
Um, what is your current kind of take on, how are we doing with our clinical applications and healing of women's trauma, like
Hmm.
sensory motor psychotherapy, like DBT, etc.?
Yeah. I think what I love and how we're doing, I feel like we're kind of deconstructing what is pathology. And even when we're talking about trauma, because I'm always nervous about trauma becoming the buzzword, right? And not really knowing what that is. And I love that we can talk about it as these, violations of the self as well as disturbances in attachment and connection, right? And so I really love that in order to talk about the disconnection that trauma kind of elicits, that we have to come back to the body. And I feel like this is the next wave. I really see this is the next wave in therapy as we're looking at bringing the body into treatment. It's not just about talking about it, it's about sensing and feeling our way through healing. And that is why it is so critical that we have the experts that are coming to speak to really add those tools into our treatment approaches.
Yeah, and the body. So people like Dr. Pat Ogden,
Mhm.
Laura Parnell, Deb Dana, who I was just on with
Yes.
the other evening
Mhm.
on Monday. Um, they are absolutely going to be talking about trauma, how to release trauma from the body. But you
Mhm.
know what? I'm also getting excited about folk like Dr. Kathleen Shard. We've also got Dr. Sue Johnson talking about
Yes.
her EFIT model and
Mhm.
actually bringing in some cognitive therapies, which are showing amazing evidence for healing trauma within women as well. So again, just your thoughts on
Yeah.
we're bringing in the body, we're bringing in sort of top down therapies. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts as we kind of bring these therapies all together?
Well, this is the true presentation of the human experience, right? We are sensing, feeling, and thinking, organizing creatures, right? And so I mean, we've done studies in the past that we know that it's not one therapeutic approach, right? That heals all. And so, what I love is that, yes, we're going to be talking about brain state. We're going to be talking about, you know, the narrative as well as then the somatic integration of all of it. That's actually how our brain and body works. We have created the arbitrary line. It's an illusionary line that these things are separate. No, they all work together, right? And so we can only enhance our skills by being able to address the whole being.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm just watching a little bit in the chat. I think it's Ria who's just said, she loves bringing both of them together, and
Yeah.
especially with EMDR as well.
Mhm.
So, absolutely. I think there's something about, the treatment of trauma, specifically with women, maybe being bidirectional, where we're
Mhm.
working the bottom up, the top down. But I
Yes.
think what is actually happening is that kind of sequencing of trauma out through the body.
Yes.
No matter if we're working top down or bottom up, we're actually getting to where it's stored in the body.
Yes. And if I may, I think the other piece that we have to look at, and this is what I love about having this conference with all these wonderful female experts, is there is a socio-political part of this that impacts how well we heal, right? You've got to deal with the shame factor of what it means for a woman to come forth
Yeah.
acknowledging a trauma that has happened, right? And so, we don't get away from that, and that just adds to the need for a diverse set of tools, right? We're complex human beings, right? Nothing is simple and easy. And unfortunately, what has happened to women over time has often been weaponized against them. So I love the idea that so many of the different presenters are going to be talking about how to facilitate a safe space for women to come and speak what they need from us.
And that makes me think of, we've got several sessions a day starting tomorrow
Hmm.
with this Women's Trauma Summit. And at the end of each day, we have a panel discussion. I think you
Yes.
are in one of
Hmm.
them. And one of the panels that I'm particularly looking forward to is a panel discussion with Dr. Kathleen Shard, with Dr. Bethany Brand, and
Hmm.
Anita Mandley, who is a somatic experiencing practitioner, but she's
Yes.
bringing in the epigenetics of and the transgenerational trauma element of it.
Hmm.
So we have, again, this panel happening where we're going to be talking about, basically just what you said, where women have been the problem.
Hmm.
And we see a lot of diagnosis, BPD, DID, you name the disorder, it's the
Right.
woman's problem. And
Hmm.
they're going to be talking about exactly that. And what are the differences of BPD, DID, whatever the label is?
Right.
And
Hmm.
or is it just a natural response to trauma?
Yes, yes. That is something I've always taken away from the work of Janina Fisher and everything, is the wisdom of the body, right? How do we actually survive without these defenses, right? This is something I explored a long time ago when I had so many women coming in with a BPD diagnosis and having had abuse and trauma since early childhood. I'm like, how would we not? How would we not be showing these symptoms that we're calling symptoms or problems? And we think about
Absolutely.
those are actually really skillful adaptations to survive, right? And so I'm glad that we're going to have that discussion and be able to find where's the synthesis and where is the wisdom.
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
think, Ebony, you just mentioned something so great. You talk about, the symptoms that women bring into clinic.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, they're just symptoms
Hmm. Yes.
of not something that is kind of wrong with them,
Yes.
but actually the effect of something that has happened to them.
That's
And
right.
I think that, what you say is a lot of time in my clinic, probably in your clinic, it's a big aha moment when women realize, oh shit, there's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
That's
they're
right.
actually just the symptoms of the trauma or the socialization or the da fill in the blanks.
Yes, yes. And I try to tell clients at the beginning, these are coping solutions, right? And how they've become a problem is that the coping solution has lost its context. So we're going to put the solution back in the proper context, right? And create more flexibility of more options. But yeah, it is that, this is evidence that something's happened. So let's at least validate that. Let's acknowledge that this didn't come out of a vacuum, right? Aliens didn't invade your brain. This is how you figured out how to survive. So good for you.
Absolutely. And I
Mm-hmm.
can sort of see Liz in the chat. She's sort of saying, insights in nurses and their specific trauma. We are absolutely going to be
Oh,
covering.
yes.
Actually, there's a couple of things. We're going to be talking abortion and the implications of that at times. We're going to be talking birth trauma. We're going to be talking PTSD as a result of birth trauma. So, I don't know, Ebony, if there's anything kind of you want to say around that, because I've
Yeah.
great question that Liz has asked.
And I'm also thinking, like, kind of what as I'm understanding Liz's question too, is just thinking about the impact. So it's both ways, right? As we're talking about the trauma that our clients experience, but also how it impacts us as professional care providers, right?
Yeah,
Professional service providers. And how do we manage that, right? And these, especially when we think about I think of a nurse as a frontline responder, like they're the first
absolutely.
in, right? And how do we deal with that? And the vicarious trauma and the PTSD and all of those pieces that come with being in this service and caring profession. So yes, I think I always say this to my staff, what we're teaching our goslings is good for the gander and the goose, right? So let's take these skills in for ourselves as well. So I what I love about our presenters is that what you're going to hear are going to apply across many, many sectors, many industries, but also not just for the client, it's also for the clinician.
Yeah. And one of the talks that I do look forward to is Deb Dana
Hmm.
talking very much about polyvagal theory and the nervous system, and
Yes.
teaching people how to not just track the nervous system responses happening in their clients,
Hmm.
but also their own nervous system and how are they fluctuating between states in the day.
Yes, yes. And I will also be speaking too as well about, what are those tools right at the beginning of this work? And I've loved Deb Dana's work because it really helped me even resource myself utilizing polyvagal theory to know and trust and be attuned. And so, and then also then what I love is embodied modeling, right? So I embody it, I take that on in order to model to the client, especially someone who is freshly traumatized. They are so disconnected from their own body space that they need us as models to help them safely come back and be curious and investigate. And Deb Dana's work has been very, very helpful for my clients to gain that curiosity again.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad that that came up in the chat because, as you
Hmm.
rightly say, this is a trauma conference
Yes.
for clinicians, whether nurses or doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, psychotherapists, licensed social workers, mental health practitioners, wherever you are
Hmm.
working with women who have experienced trauma. And
Yes.
on that, another interesting part, I'm actually looking forward to. We have Cece Skies. She is a senior lead trainer for the
Hmm.
IFS Institute. She's going to be talking about woman addiction, love,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. So I'm really, really keen to hear what she has to say from the IFS model because that's really very popular at the
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah. And I would say this is the other side of trauma, right? So we can look at the big T traumas or the small T traumas, but what we think about also is another form of trauma over time, our attachment disturbances left unchecked, and how that impacts our relationship with others. And yes, love addiction, all of those pieces come into play. And, when we look at again through the lens of trauma, these are still coping solutions, right? These are ways that we've figured out how to survive, that may not be serving us any longer. And so I'm excited to host her talk because I told her already I'm gonna be taking notes, right? I'm just gonna be taking notes. So it's all a part of the human experience.
Yeah. And Ebony, just before we sign off, obviously,
I know.
I can chat forever. I
I
could
know
chat.
that's right. Yes.
Is there anything before we sign off for this evening that
Mhm.
you just want to mention to the people that are joining us, the people going to be watching this retrospectively, those
Mhm.
people who have been amazing in the chat? So thank you so much. We're hearing from a lot of people. Anything you want to say?
I mean, I would just say I want people who are coming live or later to just lean in and recognize that, it's not one thing, it's not one way. It is really about pulling all of these pieces together, woven in together. So stay open to that, right? We want to have this flexible, open mindset, and um, and that at the base, to me, trauma is a thief, and trauma steals and robs women of their curiosity and wonder. So I want people to come curious, come with wonder about how to use these tools for yourself and for the people that you serve. And that is how we're going to start breaking through the horrible bondage of trauma.
Mm. So eloquently put.
Mhm.
So thank you, Ebony. To
Yes,
everyone, join Ebony, myself, partners in crime, and co-hosting this
that's
Women's Trauma
right.
Conference tomorrow and Friday. If you can't make it, buy the recording, and hopefully this is going to be really contributing to some of the questions about women's trauma and what's happening globally as women experience horrific things. Thank you so much.